Hello, everybody. Thank you guys and gals for tuning in, listening to another episode of the Stivers Show. Very excited about my guest today, Michael Davis. Mike is a attorney and partner at the law firm of Kuehne Davis, and just an all-around awesome guy and pretty amazing attorney as well. So excited to have you on the show, man.
I'm glad to be here.
We've known each
And
other for
by
a
the way,
little,
you're
yeah.
just amazing.
Thank you, thank you. We've known each other for a little while through our work in the Dade County Bar Association and just kind of, in the attorney world in general. But I know you as, being a really awesome attorney. So, but where I'll let you kind of do an introduction, tell me maybe a little bit about, who you are and what you do.
Sure. I've been practicing now for about, I guess, 13 years, which is really amazing. My primary practice, I'm board certified in appeals. So I'm an appellate attorney. I do appellate and trial support for attorneys, mainly working with a lot of small law firms who need support for their litigation, whether it's assistance with their motion practice, handling interlocutory appeals, or helping them at trial with jury instructions. That's a lot of what we do in terms of partnering with small firms. My firm also has a civil rights practice, which I'm really beginning to love. I've always wanted to be a civil rights lawyer. And with every case that we get in, I find myself loving that so much. And then our firm also does white collar criminal defense, as well as we have an elections law practice. So Ben's big thing, Ben actually represented Al Gore in the 2000 election litigation. He was the local lawyer here. And so since then and before that, we've had a pretty robust elections law practice representing politicians in every aspect, whether it's ethics investigations, the election itself. And sometimes when politicians are unfortunately charged with crimes, we'll also be involved in those cases as well.
Interesting. Were you all consulted in the recent stuff going on in Washington?
Well, as you saw in Florida, there is nothing really happened in Florida. I think our election was pretty much done by 9 p.m. But Ben and I both manned the voter protection for the Democratic Party and the Biden campaign. But yeah, there wasn't a whole lot. I think Ben was consulted in Wisconsin, but when it comes to election law, as you all probably know just from this last round, election law is largely state law. So generally, if there's going to be an election challenge or a request for a recount, it's going to be a matter of state law. So you generally rely on local practitioners. I think Ben was able to provide his perspective, having been involved in a recount in the 2000 election, but that was sort of the extent that we were involved.
Interesting. So I'm curious, why did you end up becoming an attorney?
So, since I was 7, it's what I've always wanted to do. Like, I remember being a kid, and this is crazy now that I think about this. But kid come push me off the swing. That was our thing that we joke about. Like, you push me off the swing, I'm going to sue you. We didn't fight. We threatened to sue each other.
You were very advanced children.
It's really, I think about this. Yeah. I probably had like 2 or 3 fights as a kid growing up. Everything else is threats. I'm going to sue you. I'm going to sue you. And so I've just always wanted to be a lawyer. I call it my Joseph dream, Joseph the dreamer, in the Bible. And so it's just been what I've always wanted to do, and it's what I'm doing. So I'm living my dream.
I'm interested in the civil rights piece of it. Can you maybe, what kind of things are you all doing? What kind of cases are you taking?
Yeah. So civil rights. It's there's pre-Black Lives Matter civil rights, and then there's post. And I've had the opportunity of being involved in both. And the civil rights, it's really changing uh, in terms of people's perspectives of what it means to shoot a Black person and what it means to hold the police accountable for conduct that they are accused of doing, whether in a criminal court of law or civil court of law. So civil rights it's really exciting. It's really changing. Some of the cases that we've been involved in, it's a lot of it is unfortunately poor Black people who find themselves dead after having an encounter with the police, and the cases are always very tough for the family. They're tough to litigate because I think, as we all know, the police are protected sort of in our minds, right? It's very hard for us to grapple with the idea that an officer makes a mistake, and even if he does make a mistake, we tend to want to give them leeway because they put their lives on the line for us. They risk their lives for us every day. So all of those, that sort of concept, it comes to play when you are litigating a civil rights case, starting from the beginning. Qualified immunity. Qualified immunity gives the officers basically a pass. And in order for the victim of police brutality to overcome qualified immunity, they have to do two things. One, they have to establish that their constitutional right was violated, which, that can happen. Uh, but secondly, they have to establish that the right that was violated was clearly established. And qualified immunity is actually it's it's become the subject of debate now, as legal scholars are beginning to accept the fact that qualified immunity is nowhere in the Civil Rights Act. Just a quick history lesson. The Civil Rights Act was passed during the Reconstruction era. It was originally called the Ku Klux Klan Act, and it was passed as part of the reforms that were meant to protect the newly freed slaves. And when you look at the text of the statute, qualified immunity is not there. And I think what's fascinating, qualified immunity actually it was first introduced in the 60s litigation. So where you had the Black freedom riders, ironically enough, the descendants of the slaves for whom the civil rights was passed to protect. Uh, you know, uh, I have sat in at a bus station and I was arrested while I was trying to enforce Brown v. Board of Education. I get to court and the Supreme Court says, sort of in an offhanded way, um, well, it would just make sense that there should be some sort of good faith immunity for these officers in Alabama who are just enforcing Alabama Jim Crow, and that really is where qualified immunity starts. And we're still actually dealing with it today. So the long and short of it, Civil Rights Act is created to protect the freed slaves. The descendants of those freed slaves then tried to enforce their rights in a court of law. Qualified immunity becomes a barrier to them, and today we're still dealing with it. And I do hope that as time goes on, either Congress or the courts, someone will do something to um, acknowledge the fact that qualified immunity is not a statutory defense.
Are you noticing any difference kind of in the legal world of, you said pre Black Lives Matters, post Black Lives Matters, in terms of not just sentiment, because I think there's definitely a different sentiment, but in terms of like the legal aspect of laws changing or more proposals for changing? Are you seeing much of that? Are you involved in any aspect of that?
Most definitely. So I'm actually currently representing a client who was the victim of, she was basically shot in the face by a rubber bullet during the George Floyd protest. And I think you can see the difference to the extent that the city and the governmental agency has been willing to listen and to meet with the client and to discuss potential reforms. So as opposed to it's the victim of police brutality versus the police, you're now seeing more of a community approach because I think everyone recognizes that um, something has to give. And I think that's a positive change.
Are you seeing more and more attorneys getting involved in that space?
You do, because I think civil rights cases are expensive to litigate and they're very difficult. But their heart, it's a matter of the heart, and I think you see a lot of lawyers that have the heart for civil rights that they're getting involved in these sort of cases.
Is it, are those cases pro bono primarily, or how are they being funded?
Yeah, so the cases are funded by the law firm, and so what we call it, it's generally a contingency fee based practice. So this is like your standard, plaintiff's case where you have a plaintiff who's generally a person who's not of means and who could not afford to hire a lawyer, pay the lawyer, pay the experts on his or her own. So the lawyer takes on those costs and advances them on behalf of the client. And Florida law allows the client to do that. Oh,
Interesting.
sorry, allows the client to do that as well as the lawyer.
Interesting. Well, one of the other things you spoke about is the board certified component,
Yeah.
and I mean, difficult to do, and appellate work is probably one of the more difficult areas of law. Certainly, one of the more technical areas of law. I mean, was that, what kind of, I guess, how was the process? Would you recommend it, going that route, and yeah, just kind of your experience with that?
Yeah, yeah, so that's a very good question. So I think I would recommend it for everyone. When you become board certified, it's exactly what it means. It means that you have been certified by a board of other experts in the state of Florida in a certain area of the law. And as you can see, I'm probably a glutton for punishment, right? Between civil rights, which is clearly a difficult area of the law, as well as the appellate process. But yeah, for the appellate board certification, it's learning all of the rules, both the state rules as well as the federal rules of appellate procedure, as well as the United States Supreme Court's appellate rules of procedures, as well as the 11th Circuit rules. So there's a lot of rules to learn, a lot of standards of reviews to learn, but it's really rewarding because it's like a second bar exam. And I think for any young lawyer who sits for the board certification exam and goes through the process of learning, you really do see that your practice is really transformed in terms of your knowledge about your particular area, whether it's family law, you take the board certification in family law or probate law, you'll see that at the end of the day, once you're through it, you know so much more that you probably didn't know before.
You love being an attorney, I can tell. Or
Yeah, I get,
maybe
yeah.
you wouldn't admit it on this, but it
No,
seems like you.
I'm living my dream.
Yeah. So, and one of the things I know that's, kind of maybe somewhat unique about you, but your partner, Ben Cooney, had been practicing for, a while. He's a little older. Like you said, been involved in the Gore case and been around for a little while. How, and now you're a partner at that firm, right? And so, I know a lot of young attorneys, it's difficult because they either want to start their own or they don't know how to become a partners, or, in a lot of firms, the partners are just real old dudes a lot of time, a lot of times. Um, so how, I mean, how was that? Was that one of your first jobs, or how did you kind of go that route? And then, what recommendations, if any, would you have for, maybe younger attorneys trying to navigate their own legal career?
Yeah, so I think the first point is I think it's respect for the older members of our practice. I think Ben and I work very well because I genuinely respect him and I genuinely believe that he's an amazing lawyer. And uh, that that's a key point for any associate that's working for a senior partner. It's very easy to look at someone and say, he's older, but the reality is that that person knows a lot. And I am always happy whether I've generated the case, it doesn't matter. If I know that I'm going to need a Ben in the case, I am grateful to have Ben and to be partners with him, and to be able to say, Ben, I have this difficult hearing. I need your help. Here, please go do the hearing for me. Because it's the experience, and I think um, being a young partner with someone who has 40 years of practice, I think that's what it comes down to. And I think in turn, Ben respects the fact that I'm willing to work hard. So where I lack in experience, I make up in hard work. So for me, Ben can do one moot for an oral argument and he's good to go. Me, I'm going to do two or three, right? And that's okay, right? Because I'm younger and it requires more work. Ben can write a brief, pip pop, just like that. Me, it may take a little bit longer, but that's okay. What matters is that I'm willing to do the work and that I respect his process for having a standard of excellence in the work that we do.
Yeah. So no shortcut for hard work, essentially. Yeah, I think it's great because I mean, again, you know, a lot of, I think, younger associates, they're, you know, trying to find their way, but it sounds like, you know, respect your elders, put in the work, and find somebody you enjoy working with is kind of what's got you to where you're at.
Yeah, and you know, I'm not gonna, and I'll be straight up. It took me a while to learn that. Ben was my third job. My first job, I was a law clerk for a federal judge, and I got to tell you, I thought it was all that. I mean, you can tell me anything. I just graduated from law school, and I had this sweet little federal clerkship, and like I was the bomb diggity dag. You can tell me anything, and I quickly learned that I don't know anything, and that's okay. And, you know, that's the one thing that I learned from my clerkship. I didn't know a lot. And I think I carried that humility to my job at the PD's office and then into private practice. And PD office being the public defender's office.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's great advice. Mike, I know we're coming up on our time, man. I appreciate it. If people want to, you know, learn more about you, refer you cases, you know, reach out, what's kind of, you know, best way to get in touch with you, if you don't mind?
Yeah. Do I just give my number or should I just give my
Whatever you want.
website?
Well, and we'll put your contact info, you know, website, whatever in the show notes as well.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Because I'm not on Instagram. Like I am like, I mean,
You're
like,
too busy out there fighting the cause, man.
well, I don't know, you know, we have one of our youngins is putting together our Instagram, but we keep forgetting to like follow up with the kid, and he's done such a great job with it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but yeah, I would say, I guess you can go to the website. You can reach me 305-789-5989. Our website is kuehnedavislaw.com, or just reach out to you and you can forward me as well.
Awesome, man.
And I want to say, just before we leave, that I've sent people to you to do their probate work, and I've never heard anything but good things about you. So I do want to thank you because it means a lot. When I do a referral, I am putting my name behind the person, and it's always been a joy to send people to you.
Awesome. I appreciate that, man. Appreciate that. We appreciate the love and much appreciated. Sir, thank you for all you're doing, man. And hopefully we can catch up in person soon. Appreciate it. Take care.
You too.